大家好，我是王不老说半岛. Hi, folks. Today, I would like to continue my discussion about packaging process technology with a focus on the thermal management, right? The thermal management, about the heat, temperature. That's what we are talking about here. And, well, I try to be a little bit funny today. So, my question is, do we need a Wim Hof? What is a Wim Hof? Well, that would be my icebreakers. My icebreaker today is that why we need to increase our body's core temperature. It turns out human body temperature, as we know of, is always around, it's best to keep around 98.6 degree Fahrenheit or 30 degree Celsius, right? I think that's a common sense. But it turns out most of people today, including myself, the body temperature of us actually is not that high. It's about 36, 1 degree or less. 36.5 or something like that. And it turns out the scientists study that this 1 degree off may not be a big deal, but actually it really causes a lot of troubles. The issue is that it will reduce the body's metabolic capacity by almost a half. You say 12 to 120% here. I would say okay, 50, 60%. And the immune function is down to about 30%. So if you have, so if we have a lower body core temperature, that actually is not helpful. Let's put it that way. Our immune system need to reach 37 degrees. And if you have like 38 degrees, you have a fever. That's too much. But our body temperatures are usually too low. So we need to do something about it. We need to exercises and something like that. But it turns out Wim Hof disagreed. Wim Hof said that this guy, you need to dip into an ice cold bath to increase your body temperature. He's a funny guy, right? Let's look at what he says.
This is Wim Hof. I must be a genius because it's so simple to be happy. Just go into this ice bath with needing the stretch to the deepest. In the mist, it's cold. I'm in Holland. I'm with the Iceman. It's pouring rain. It's freezing. Well, I'm going to get in an ice bath with this man who's already been in here for 45 minutes. Go down slowly and surely. Quality of breath. Quality of breath.
Well, look at how pale this guy is, right? So, but this guy seems his body temperature is really high. It's all warming up in red. It's funny to look at them.
Don't think about the camera. Just be. Oh, man. Rich.
All right, that's the Iceman. Iceman says that in order to increase our body temperature or somehow the cold temperature actually will ignite, will initiate somehow our immune system to boost, reboost, enhance our immune system. That's his theory. And it turns out that, well, it become a movement now. You can find this kind of class everywhere. You can even find YouTube to buy this special designed bathtub for you to immerse yourself in. It's very interesting. I actually myself practice it. I'm taking cold shower every day for the last 2 years, and it seemed helpful, but it's not as cold as this one. All right. Well, that's our icebreaker. Let's get back to the business. So, what about dyes and packaging? Do they need a Wim Hof or temperature? Are they prefer hot temperature or low temperature? So it turns out that Chen Hu's group studied the self-heating in our various interconnect. He said that's what he says here. Lifetime is reduced to 50% of the room temperature level when the temperature is increased by 7 to 8 degrees, okay, above 25 degrees. So if you have 35, 37, something like that, I'm sorry, 32, 33, then you're in trouble. Your lifetime will reduce by half. That's how terrible self-heating of our silicon CMOS. And this brings to these figures. Pretty much, this is two figures here. On the right hand side is a bell curve, is a Weibull analysis bell curve. If you remember, I've shown this Weibull analysis, the Weibull distribution for reliability. This is called bathtub curve. This is the bathtub, and here is the early life, and here is the flat one, is the useful life, and this one is the normal wear out. It's going to go, so we gotta go. And this is the time we like to elongate, of course, as long as possible. This one has been taken care of by the burn-in process, so you don't see that from the product usually, except no 7, right? The Samsung screw themselves out because of that. And the formula to describe this curve is the Weibull probability density functions. So this one is the famous Weibull's mathematical form. And the beta here is a shape parameter. And here is the beta less than 1 as the infant mortality, and beta equal to 1 or close to 1 is your flat line here. And then you finally reach the beta greater than 1 as this curve. So the goal is to elongate, right? Elongate as far as you can, right? That because you have the low failure rate here at the flat line. But what the reliability situation under high temperature is that it reduces this curve. It squeezes curve from the gray line to the red line. So your life expectancy reduced. And the left-hand side is showing a clear numerical relationship between the degrees, the temperature, and the lifetime, right? It's a log scale. You see that the temperature is a linear scale, and then the lifetime is a log scale. So obviously, a change of 20 degrees will drop you easily drop you by some order of magnitude, right? If you look at there, so from 100 to 1/2, all you need to do is like close to 10 degrees. That's about it. Okay. So that's what I say. Weibull say hi. Right? Your bathtub just got smaller on the hotter bath. That's pretty much what he's trying to say here, right? This gray curve shrink because your bathtub water is too hot. Okay. That's the reason I said maybe Wim Hof could help. Before I let you go, I come back to the heating effect human and I see differently. Okay. The reason we want to make ourselves healthier is to bring our core temperature to what it should be, which is 37 degrees. So bring up your core temperature, boost your immune system, and elongate your lifespan. But bring up your IC temperature, reduce your lifespan. Okay, this is the problem we have for the current technology. Well, but so what do we have here? We are talking about dyes or packaging here. Dyes and packaging, they are actually different in terms of temperatures. In a dye perspective, in a chip, in a device, okay, it's called, oh my God, it's a sheet. It's a self-heating effect, which means that the channel itself, because the current goes through it, right? The current goes through it. Current goes through the channel, and then current meaning what? Current meaning Joule's heating. Joule's heating, we'll explain, is just resist the heating. And you can look at how a device dissipate the heat generated by the channel when they are in operation. In a planar MOSFET, you can see that the heat can go down to the silicon substrate, this silicon, and it can go down here very quickly, no problem, because silicon is reasonably good heat conductor. Now, for the FinFET wise, that's probably not the case anymore, because the thickness of channel is super thin. How thin the channel is now? Say 6 nanometer for the very advanced now. They cannot go down below 4, all right? Keep that in mind. There's no channel thinner than 4. Thinner than 4, you cannot control VT. So it's about 6 nanometer. In the early days, about 10. But anyway, it's just below 10, right? So the heat going down is very small. So we're going to go. How do you dissipate heat? Of course, you can go through dielectrics insulation, but that's not effective, right? Effective ones go through by source and drain. So that's still metallic, and that's how heat will be dissipated through. And it's not much by the substrate anymore. So this is a modern FinFET that how they dissipate heat. The Joule heating is the formula for that is I square R. I think it's a high school physics. We know that, right? Current squared times the resistance. So, and that is called ohmic heating because the process which the electron current through a conductor produce heat. It's just going through. It has a lot of, it's not superconductor, right? Only superconductor does not have resistance. That's why it's called superconductor. Usually conductor has a lot of resistance. So when current goes through it, he had to do a lot of crazy stuff. He had to bounce off and that. He had to do a lot of motion, try to get it through. And that create a lot of frictions, internal frictions. And that friction means you're losing energy, you less heat, okay? And that's proportional by the current square and resistance. And so that's called Joule heating. Just this is a heating element that we have in our house or in camping, and then we turn on by turning on, we connect this with a power, and this is a high resistant material compared to the copper line that are attached to it. And this is like monodisilicide, something like that, very high resistance. And then so you heat up, all right? You can do that with graphite as well. So this is what the Joule heating is about. But if we do it in an equivalent circuit, self-heating effect is a low-pass filter in an equivalent RC thermal model. Here, we treat heat like a resistance and capacitance. Usually we see this kind of a circuits in a regular resistance and capacitance circuits and current, right? But here we treat the heat flow like an electron, like it's electrical current flow. They are the same thing, pretty much. It's always an energy flow. And they will follow actually all the circuit theory very nicely, no problem. Okay. And then the pretty much that's how people model self-heating element these as self-heating effect these days by creating a equivalent circuit map and using all the electrical circuit the schemes that you apply to analyze regular RC circuit. Every law you study that can be directly applicable to study thermal behavior. That's very interesting. Okay. All right. So that what happened back to the device here. So what is the time scale? That's what we worry about here, right? Time scale for heating up and cooling down. IBM did a very good, interesting studies, and they have shown that the cell heating will impact device performance, and easily go up to what? Any chip that you buy these days, internal temperature could go up from 60 to 100, roughly 60 to 100, easily. So that's why when you hold your cell phone in hand and running a game on it, you feel hot, right? Your hand will feel in the back of the cell phone or your computers, whatever, that will start to feel very warm, and you feel the warmth on the outside, meaning that internal temperature actually is quite high, right? Pretty high. It easily go up to 60 degrees higher than the room temperature. Oh, okay. And then what about time constant? How long would it take for the heat to generate and decay in a characteristic time constant? It's roughly 60 to 100 nanosecond. That's what IBM show here, right? IBM is very good at this fundamental research. We thank them for it. But this effect is this effect still that important? My answer is no. Okay. The reason being, you can look at this graph. The number of fin in the device used to be 7 fin. We're going down this way, right? Because when you're shrinking it, you need to have because the area, right? You are shrinking the area. You cannot have 7 fins. Pretty much, you had to go down to much less than 7 fin, 5 fin, and then go down to 4, 3, something like that. And here it shows that when you reduce the fin, your temperature rise decreases. Okay, so this reduces the fin and your temperature reduces. Scaling reduces the number of fins. So cell heating effect is not that a big deal for these for the current advanced node. Another reason is that you have multi dies, right? So you don't have one big die. Usually you have a chiplet design. You have multi die. They share operations. They don't running one die forever. They don't do that, right? So this means that they take the load, uh, the maybe equally, something like that. Then so the temperature will be not that high. Therefore, the newer and newer devices, say laptop and and USB, say Apple's M1 Mac, is actually cooler than its previous generation. That's because they have the operation system are done in the way they share the nodes, they share the dies, or the parallel computing. So these are all helping. On top of that, the fin reduces, right? Fin reduces, the fin number reduces. But so keeping in mind, so the bottom line is the die self-heating effects. That's probably okay. Okay. But we are talking about packaging here. Here, in our simulation I saw is that the device simulation is on the right-hand side, and then the package simulation is here. These are two different, if you put it into the same scale, packaging could be harder, all right? Locally, this is one die is running it, right? So this is spike because the gigahertz, right? And this is one gradually warming up because if your packaging are not done properly, you have a bump. That's where your logic die is going to heat up. And so this is a visual aid to help us understand the packaging. This is the packaging and this is the device. Okay. And so if we look based on that, look at the KPIs for packaging. And this is what Dr. Yu from TSMC suggests. That's a P3C2. That the consumptions, that's the performance, electrical performance, consumptions, dissipation of power, packaging profile, design, and manufacturing cycle time and cost. P3C2. Inside, dissipation of power. That's what we're talking about here, right? And this one is one of the challenges that actually foundry has to handle. Whether the customer gonna help you or not, of course they're gonna help you, try to work with you, right? But at the end of the day, the foundry need to have come up with a design with the customer in a way to show that the dissipation of power has been handled. And this one earlier days, the packaging had another KPI is called SWAP. SWAP means size, weight, and power consumption required for component or system. And the SWAP C would include the cost. I think this is what we emphasize here. Everything we propose here has to be reasonably cost effective. Okay. For the device, we don't do this thing. Device, we have PPAC, the power, performance, area, cost. So this is what die KPI is. SWAP is pretty much a simple way of looking at the power consumptions and requirement of the various requirement for our packaging. And this is from actually from the aerospace. Okay. And the military used that for the DARPA program. And it is still coming down to these days. And where this major concern is, we're talking about thermal stress. These are evil pictures, right? Evils. And here is the old packaging evils are from thermal stress. No, this is thermal stress. Okay. This is the devil. Come out. And why is that? That's because the CTE mismatch, coefficient of thermal expansion mismatch. Copper expands more, and then the glass plate or substrate expands less. The difference creates a stress. Okay. So in this picture, right? This picture is similar to what I've shown here. Yeah, that's the devil. Okay. Then the evils induced by the thermal stress. We easily pick many of them. Here is just 5 simple one we could envision. Interfacial failures. That's the first one. And because if you have interfacial, usually the interface are very critical. It doesn't matter it's die to TSV to interconnect or the die to other interfaces we will show later using TIM and cracking. Okay. And then and in many ultra high temperature sensors. So this is one example we see, and it will accelerate a failing process. And of course, the warpage. It causes some deformation, and that is a critical thing we need to look at. So let's look at this tool, the warpage, okay, and then the interfacial failures. So this is pretty much going to focus on today. I further categorize this into 2. I said local die interfaces versus global control system. Local die level, you have 10. This is called thermal interface materials, air gap. You have microfluidic heat sink, MFHS. These are all kind of local die level. We'll talk about one by one later. And global, you have a warpage, coplanarity, all these are looking at from a higher level, like a bird's view of your package. Okay. And I call Mr. Tim is the interfacial failure solvers. TIM 1, 2, 1.5, all these are glue, some kind of material that sit between devices with a cover and a heat sink. So you try to make adhesive. Then the question is, can I use more copper just to, so as copper is good, right? What do I need Tim to do that? Why do I need Mr. Tim? Well, it turns out that the interface are full of micro holes. They are very fine micro holes. Okay. So if you use a copper instead of this kind of epoxy glue, then you cannot fill it up. You don't fill it up, there's no heat transfer, right? Here is no heat transfer. So it turns out it's a big deal. So say TIM 1.5, is ideally you have a device touching the heatsink directly. So these are the heatsink that you could buy from the outside, but you need to glue them together. And this TIM is a kind of super glue. It's a highly conductive epoxy. But there are more material than that, right? There are a lot of material. The interesting one is like the indium, all right? So this is the many people are liquid metals, okay? Well, not exactly liquid metal, but it's soft and pliable and they could easily melt easily at reasonably high temperature, not too high, so you could easily mold. And indium is a recent uh, choice of materials, and that's an indium. So that's expensive. That's expensive. And so, as I mentioned here, the TIM 1.5, the thermal conductivity is reasonably high, right? And then uh, and then it will, but it will survive to. They are soft and pliable, so they have you have movement at the corner. That's okay. So that's why when you stick something to you stick your die to your heat sink, able to tolerate a good measure of mechanical tolerance. And you need to be stable, right? The spec is 150 degrees, 2,000 hours. So this means that the super glue you put it here can allow things to move around a little bit. You cannot put a too rigid thing. It has to be somewhat elastic at the same time. That's conductive, that is elastic, and then the strong, and then can put up a high temperature for extended period of time. So this one is currently people try to do, and it's on the market already. So and that is the local area, something like that. But if you look at the more global view, the coplanarity is a metal. It really matters. It's a degree where the heat sink is flat and level with the surface of the package. We mentioned here that uh, this super glue TIM 1.5 can have a good measure of movement, but you still had to design in a way that you had to make sure that it's very flat, so you don't have that problems. It's called coplanarity. It's important for the Berkeley array, and this if it's not flat, uh, it will easily flake off. So they have a spec. So heat sink has a measure of 1 mil, all right? So and the shape of it actually matters too. They find out that actually a little bit larger and elongated one is good. Exact square may not be that good because these are learnings that you apply to your actual packaging. So this is kind of global scale. That's what I meant in the previous one. Okay, warpage, coplanarity, and all that, right? And then warpage wise, you can imagine that if it's not done right, the whole thing is warped during the thermal cycle. And actually, you have an interesting thing is material. If you flexing it and flexing it and cooling down, flexing and cooling down, it has a pump out. It's a pump out curve, all right, due to increased flexing. So this may not be good. Eventually, the material can move around. The material pumps out after heating cooling cycle. That's what's scary, meaning that the material is no longer, your sticky material is no longer there. And then eventually it will delaminate. And it get worse, right? It will get worse. And your die size increases, this can get worse. Remember, the AI chip these days are about 800 millimeter square, huge. Compared with the small die, that's probably okay, like 10 to 15 millimeters square. The big die, AI die, is 800 millimeters square. Okay, so that's a huge one. Imagine if you have a pump out, you lost that AI die, then that's not good, right? So what are we going to talk about is MFHS. This is the micro fluidic, some small water funnel through, not small water, small holes that inside the package that use water to directly cool to the die directly, and it's from NAPA. I'm sorry, DAPA. DARPA, about everything. Okay. Key inventions are pretty much from DARPA, right? So that's our World Wide Web, all kinds of new invention is from DARPA. Because that's what DARPA does. DARPA is a U.S. military research sponsor organization, not military, I would say DoD. And what their job is to understand what is needed in the next 15 to 30 years. So they were ahead of everybody. Foundry is doing what? Foundry is doing heavy high volume manufacturing right now. They're starting the technology maybe in a near future, like 5, maximum 10 years, right? And then university, like 10 years roughly to 15 years. And DARPA would do all up to 30 years ahead. That's what they do. And they will give the professor money to do that. Or whoever can, can do some experiment to show their new ideas. That's a great thing about DARPA. Always ahead. And this one, in 2000, actually, even though this report is 2013, they should be earlier, much earlier than that. So you could take the link and then explore what DARPA is doing. And here in this picture, they call it ice cool, ice cool, inter chip. So it could be inside the chip or between the chip. Inter means between the chip to have cooling using this fluid, water, pretty much DI water. Okay, and then that's how the original idea is. And then if you look at it, that will be interesting to see because TSMC did that. If you remember what I showed last time, this MH, MFS cooling has been done here. That's the microfluidic port going through. This is ideal world, right? Going to silicon interposers and going to memory. This is what ideal world should be. And in reality, this has been demoed by TSMC in a 2021 paper. And you can see, obviously, they pump water to cool the whole die, pretty much, whole package. So this will be, is that a intra-chip or inter-chip? So that it, it cool the whole package. So this one, I'm not that sure. Okay, I'm not that sure. It seemed to me it's not interchip. It should be a interchip, right? It should be interchip. Okay, it's not interchip. It's not inside the die itself, but it's definitely between the chips. So it's interchip. And I would argue that it is. I would argue that is this a Wim Hof? It is a Wim Hof, right? Remember this guy. He needs he Wim Hof that immerse himself into the icy cold path. That's exactly what this idea is. You know, I try to be that's my icebreaker. Can this be done in OI? Last time we asked is can it be done organic in interface interposer? Questionable. Questionable. Okay. So at the end of my talk is that I'm asking you a question. What about dyes and packagings? Do they need a Wim Hof? Well, I think so. All right. Thank you. Uh, that will be my talk today. Is a part one and relating to cooling of a die or package. All right. So this is what I can prepare for you. Thank you.